Let's face it, panel glue-ups can be stressful. Boards slipping around, joints not closing up, in my case, glue all over the place. Today I'll share 3 tricks that will result in flatter panels, cleaner joints, and a lot less frustration. How's it? My name is Dylan, this is Fly Creations, and as always, a warm welcome to my workshop. Today we talk panels, or more specifically, panel glue-ups. I've recently done a customer commission that required a lot of panels, and I used these 3 tricks I'm about to share with you to make the process a little bit faster, more accurate and cleaner. So join me at the workbench and I'll show you the 3 tricks. As a buy, watch until the end of this video. I'll give you more resources where you can find more information about panel glue-ups and make the process a little bit easier for you. So without further ado, let's start with jointing the edges. Now the trick is that your edges don't need to be at exactly 90 degrees to the faces. I'll show you how I go through the process of doing it or jointing the boards, and then I'll explain to you why that works when I'm done. I have the 2 boards that will be coming together face up. I always tend to work with my boards face up. I bring the edge that will be glued together, butt that up, and then close the 2 boards together like you would do a book, and now I'm jointing the boards together at the same time. It's really important that you always reference the same face against the fence of your jointer. So that is important, and do set your jointer for a thin cut. When you set up the edge for your jointer, ballpark 90 degrees is good enough, but don't go too far off 90 degrees because that may cause issues down the line. So I'm going to take you over to the jointer, joint the boards, come back, show you what they look like, and then I'll explain to you why that works. So I'll see you at the jointer. Two quick swipes on the jointer, set to a thin cut, and we've got a nice clean edge. So why does that work? I'm showing you a drawing on the screen where I've got the 2 boards together as I did join them, and the cut isn't 90 degrees. I'm also showing you a drawing where you flip the boards down and bring them together, and that shows you how the angle across the 2 boards actually cancels one another out, giving you the clean joint. Do aim for roughly 90 degrees again, not way too far off on 90 degrees because that may cause some issues. So on to trick number 3, and for this one we call in some help. Our second trick may be somewhat controversial in some quarters. Yes, I will be using Dominos, and I use them as an alignment aid. I'm not adding strength or trying to add strength. If you don't have a domino, you can use biscuits, or you can even use dowels. They will all work without any issues. Why I'm using alignment aids is I want to limit the amount of slippage that occurs during the glue up, as well as ensure that at least my show faces line up and there are no steps between the boards, and that will aid cleanup down the line. And I'll show you why slippage in our case especially may be an issue if your edges are not at 90 degrees to the face. While I'm going through the process of marking out or doing the layout, cutting the joinery and bringing everything together in clamps, I'll give you 4 more tips that you may find useful. One is keep your boards in clamps or loosely clamped while you do the layout. That just ensures proper alignment during the layout process. Secondly is do be sure to mark both boards across your joint line. Pain to separate the boards only to realize that you've only marked one board. 3 is avoid the ends. If you're doing cross cuts or making cross cuts after the glue up, you'd like to avoid exposing any one of your alignment aids. And then the 4th one, and this is the most important, this will ensure that at least your show face lines up flat, and that is to always use the same face, in my case the show face, as your reference when you're cutting and laying out the joinery. That will mitigate the risk of having a step between the 2 boards and as a result limit the amount of cleanup. So after I've done all of this, I'll clamp up the boards, do a dry fit, make sure everything lines up properly, and then I'll take you on to trick number 3. Dry fit done, and I'm happy with the joint. Nice, clean, no gaps, and the panel is flat. I've also taken the liberty to put the panel into the clamps that I'll be using during the glue up. Always a good idea to do that before and have the clamps available before you apply glue. If you're anything like me, maybe I have 1 or 2 clamps extra. I always seem to need more clamps than I did during the dry fit. So the third trick I'd like to show you today, and here we go. Third trick I'd like to show you today is how I apply the glue, and for that I use the rubber roller. Now I usually tend to lean towards using the rubber roller for large glue ups or large surfaces, but I found that on edges it works just as well, and it's actually quite quick to apply glue using it. I am notorious in applying too much glue into my joints, and panel laminations is no different. This helps me really assess how much glue I've got in there, and I find it quite useful. Now I like applying glue using my finger as much as the other guy, and it's therapeutic, so this works for me quite well. What you're seeing me do now is applying a bead of glue on the edges of each board as well as into the mortises for the loose tenons, applying the loose tenons, spreading the glue of course, applying the tenons, getting the panels together and getting it into clamps. I'm looking for a nice even squeeze out, and that's usually a quick indication if I've used too much glue or not. If you've stuck with the video up to this point, you deserve 2 bonus tips that will help you with the cleanup later in the process. The first is, when you've clamped everything up and you're ready to set the panel aside for it to dry, is put the panel upright. The glue will run down the joint and simply drip off the panel as the panel dries. If you have the joint horizontal, the problem is that if you have squeeze out, that will run over your faces, and it's really hard to clean off down the line, so it's a pain in the neck. The second bonus tip I can give you today is, don't wait for the glue to dry completely or rock hard before you remove it. I find, depending on the species that I work on, is that hard glue can sometimes tear out little bits out of the joint line, and then that becomes a pain to clean. So what I do is I use a scraper and I clean off the glue just as it skins over, and then I leave the panel in clamps until the manufacturer says I can take it out of the clamps, and then continue with my project. And that's it. 3 tricks and 2 bonus tips to help you make your panels a little bit quicker, cleaner, and I hope more accurate. I've written a companion article to go with this video, and you'll find that on my website. I've also compiled a checklist for glue ups that you can print out and keep at your bench. You'll find more about those at the links that I'm leaving in the description. The next video, I'm hoping to make 2 floating shelves with these 2 panels, so keep an eye out on my channel and I'll see you there. But that brings us to the end of this edition of Ply Creations. I hope you have a good one. Be safe in your own workshop. Until I see you next time, have a good one. Cheers.